General Hospital spoilers reveal that Michael is no longer the man Port Charles once thought they knew. His time away, recovering in a German medical facility after sustaining burns under still shrouded circumstances, did more than heal his body. It transformed him. Isolation, betrayal, and revelations have hardened Michael's resolve, reshaped his loyalties, and opened his eyes to truths that once terrified him. While the world believes he returned home merely as a father seeking justice and redemption, what they don't see is the carefully calculated shift in his worldview. One where debts are remembered. Allies are judged by action, not blood, and every move is deliberate. It is in this new framework of power and obligation that Michael finds himself quietly preparing a gift, a catalyst, for the one man who, against all odds, never turned his back on Sasha during the darkest days, Jason. While Michael was absent, being treated in seclusion and secrecy, Jason remained the lone guardian for the vulnerable Sasha and baby Daisy. No grand declarations, no public praise, just unwavering, silent protection. In a city where every alliance comes with strings, Jason asked for nothing. But Michael is not the kind of man who forgets. And now, as he watches Sasha attempt to rebuild her life and Daisy grow in a world still surrounded by shadows, Michael realizes that the only reason either of them survived emotionally intact was because Jason bore the weight. That realization gnaws at him, not with guilt, but with urgency. A man like Jason deserves more than gratitude. He deserves purpose. He deserves a door into a chapter long considered closed. And so, Michael turns to the most dangerous piece of information he's acquired since his return, the existence, the survival, of Britt. The world believes she vanished, lost in chaos. Presumed dead in a swirl of lies, classified missions, and WSB silence. But Michael, using the remnants of digital surveillance left by his contacts in Germany and encrypted logs obtained from a burned intermediary between Drew and foreign agents, has discovered an anomaly. An offshore medical facility listed a patient under a false identity with genetic markers nearly identical to Britt's. A blood type flagged. A cardiac rhythm registered during a blackout test in Munich. There is no conclusive proof yet, but Michael knows. In his bones, in the pattern of this ghostly data trail, Britt is alive. And he is going to give that knowledge to Jason. This decision isn't just about repayment. It's about resetting the board. Michael understands the gravity of what he's doing. He isn't handing Jason peace, he's handing him obsession. Britt's return, or even the hope of it, is the kind of psychological detonator that could unravel the tight grip Jason keeps on his emotions. It threatens to reignite every loss he buried under loyalty and silence. But Michael is counting on that. He needs Jason fully alive again, aware, driven, unpredictable. Because Michael sees what's coming. Drew is more dangerous than anyone realizes. Drew has built a quiet empire of emotional manipulation, legal power, and public sympathy. He's taken Willow. Twisted her into a version of herself that defends his every move. He's used their children, leveraged their pain. And Michael knows Drew won't stop until he's in full control of every person Michael has ever loved. To stop someone like that, Michael needs someone like Jason, unshackled, focused, and fueled by something personal. But there's more. Britt isn't just a potential love rekindled for Jason. She may be the key to unraveling everything about Drew's recent rise. Rumors buried deep in WSB channels hinted Britt stumbled onto something before her disappearance, something about Project Solstice, a biotech protocol Drew was once associated with. Possibly connected to how he survived captivity. If Britt remembers, or worse, if she has proof, then her return doesn't just change Jason's life, it exposes Drew's darkest secrets. Secrets Michael needs unearthed. Still, there's risk. If Jason tells Sunny, if Sunny tells Carly, the web could collapse. But Michael is ready. He's even manipulated the narrative so that it looks like the information about Britt was independently discovered by Jason, giving Michael plausible deniability. It's not about fame. It's about leverage. About planting a fuse and letting the explosion hit Drew where he least expects it, from a past he thought was buried. Jason, of course, won't react with words. He'll take the intel, examine it, and vanish into the shadows. But Michael knows that once Jason sees the details, once he senses even a trace of truth, he won't stop. And when he finds Britt, because Michael has no doubt he will, it will send shockwaves through the city. Willow, still spiraling between loyalty and identity, will question everything. Sasha, burdened by the past and trying to move forward, will be thrust into emotional chaos. Drew will panic. And Jason, resurrected emotionally by the chase and the promise of redemption, will finally become the man Michael needs him to be in this coming war. This is no longer about family dinners and quartermain drama. This is a power realignment. And Michael, the boy who once wanted to fix everything with truth and love, has grown into a man who understands that sometimes, justice isn't about what's right. It's about who holds the secrets, and when to use them. With Britt's fate dangling in the balance, Jason stepping into his darkest crusade, and Drew unknowingly walking into his own undoing, Michael stands at the center of a storm he designed. And Port Charles will never be the same again. Rory Gibson recently sent shockwaves through the General Hospital fan base with a tantalizing revelation. A major new storyline involving Michael and Jason is about to erupt, and it's not just about emotional reckoning or Port Charles politics anymore. This time, the story is going global. According to Gibson, the writers have been preparing an intense, action-packed arc that takes Michael and Jason beyond the borders of Port Charles and into the shadowy underworld of Europe. Their mission? To track down Britt, long presumed dead, and bring her home. But this isn't just a rescue mission. It's a revelation-laden odyssey. And one that promises to unravel more secrets than either man bargained for. For months now, subtle breadcrumbs have hinted that Britt might still be alive. Hidden under a veil of classified identities, medical pseudonyms, and WSB red tape. Her disappearance was never truly resolved, and fans have speculated endlessly about her fate. But now, the truth is emerging, and it's wilder than anyone imagined. Michael, still bearing emotional and physical scars from his time recovering in Germany, has pieced together a puzzle from fractured intel, data trails, and encrypted communications. Jason, ever the protector, was reluctant at first. But once Michael handed him the clues, once the possibility of Britt's survival became real, there was no stopping him. Now, Rory Gibson teases, the duo is preparing to leave Port Charles behind. The storyline will plunge them into a foreign world of false identities, black market medical facilities, WSB fugitives, and a dangerous conspiracy that Britt may have stumbled into before her disappearance. And if she's alive, she's not just in hiding, she may be running for her life. This isn't just a quest to bring someone home. It's a high-stakes race against powerful forces that have everything to lose if Britt ever speaks again. The upcoming episodes are said to blend soap opera drama with spy thriller intensity. Picture Michael and Jason navigating back alleys in Prague, confronting shadow operatives in Zurich, or decoding files in abandoned safehouses in Berlin. But it's not just the setting that will be different, it's Michael himself. Gone is the passive, naive heir of the Corinthos family. In his place stands a man driven by purpose, secrets, and strategic foresight. This journey with Jason will mark a transformation point. Not only for Michael but also for the power structure of General Hospital as a whole. As Rory Gibson hinted, Michael's stepping into something much bigger than himself. He's no longer just reacting to what's happening around him. He's orchestrating it. And with Jason by his side, the stakes rise even higher. These two men, united by pain and vengeance, loyalty and guilt, are about to challenge enemies both foreign and domestic. And when they find Britt, if they do, she may not be the same woman they remember. The world may have changed her. The question is, has Michael changed enough to handle the truth she brings with her? This new storyline could be the most explosive GH arc in years. Signaling not just the return of a fan-favorite character, but the beginning of a global shift in the show's power dynamics. From Port Charles to Prague, From redemption to reckoning, Michael and Jason's adventure is about to take General Hospital to a place it's never gone before. And if Rory Gibson's excitement is any indication, the viewers are in for an unforgettable ride. The unfolding chaos within General Hospital is rapidly spiraling into a level of psychological warfare and strategic manipulation that few in Port Charles are prepared for. At the center of this emerging storm stands Michael, a man once guided by a moral compass, now evolving into a calculated operator capable of weaponizing secrets, loyalty, and pain. A new development has surfaced, one that marks a disturbing shift in how Michael is positioning himself in the crumbling architecture of alliances and betrayals. It is no longer just about justice or family. It's about control. And in this new game, Michael is proving willing to leverage Britt and Jason, two of the most emotionally volatile variables in the entire narrative, in order to bring down the wedding of Drew and Willow. This storyline represents one of the most unsettling adjustments in the fabric of Port Charles dynamics. It's not just a twist. It's a reconfiguration of values and allegiances. Michael, once driven by protection and heartbreak, now sees the return of Britt and the growing loyalty of Jason not just as blessings, but as tools, strategic pieces on a board where the final checkmate is the collapse of Drew's credibility and the implosion of Willow's fragile reality. As the layers of psychological deterioration surrounding Willow grow deeper, driven by unresolved trauma, emotional dependency, and rumored dissociative disorders, Michael knows that exposing Drew as a liar, a manipulator, and a man who kept dark ties hidden will not only destroy the wedding, but potentially render Willow unfit in the eyes of the court and the public. The brilliance, and the horror, of this new tactic is how tightly Michael is willing to weave truth with betrayal. He doesn't need to fabricate much. All he needs is timing. Jason, emotionally compromised and still haunted by Britt, is susceptible to being drawn back into the vortex of the past. If Michael delivers Britt into Jason's arms, knowing she holds secrets about Drew's dealings in Europe or his manipulations within the WSB, it could create a chain reaction that detonates the ceremony at the altar. And with Willow's psychological stability already hanging by a thread, such an event could send her spiraling, placing Drew in a spotlight so hostile that no marriage certificate could shield him from the fallout. The danger lies in the very essence of Michael's plan. It is fueled not by rage, but by clinical precision. Every move is measured. Every ally, Jason, Britt, even Carly and Tracy, are now part of a layered equation whose result is Drew's downfall. The idea of stopping a wedding through emotional implosion rather than legal intervention is the kind of narrative twist that redefines the genre. And in Port Charles, where weddings are often battlegrounds for hidden agendas, this one is shaping up to be the most devastating yet. Michael's use of Britt is not accidental. She represents guilt, memory, and secrets, things Drew cannot escape. She also represents redemption and trauma for Jason, who might finally crack under the emotional weight of seeing her alive. And that crack, Michael knows, could be the very thing that shatters the illusion of peace that Drew and Willow are so desperate to maintain. Once the past is dragged into the light, once Britt begins to speak, once Jason begins to question Drew's motives again, the entire wedding becomes a house of cards trembling under the weight of Michael's perfectly timed gust of vengeance. And as the wedding day approaches, Port Charles is becoming less of a setting and more of a pressure cooker. The adjustments that Michael is engineering are not just dramatic developments, they are calculated demolitions. He's no longer the boy trying to protect his family. He's becoming a man willing to burn everything down to rebuild it in the image of justice as he sees it. But the question remains, how much collateral damage will his mission of control leave behind? And when the dust settles, will he still recognize himself? One thing is certain, the chaos is no longer accidental. It is designed. And Michael, standing calmly at the center of it, may be the most dangerous Corinthos yet. Britt's return to Port Charles is not just a shock, it's a reckoning. A ticking bomb detonating at the very heart of Drew's carefully manufactured redemption arc. Her reappearance shatters any illusion that the past can be buried, and for Drew, it signifies the unraveling of the life he's desperately tried to control. long thought dead or vanished under mysterious WSB protection. Britt stepping back into the light is not a rescue story, it's a nightmare dressed as a reckoning. She is the embodiment of secrets Drew thought he had buried in Europe. And now those secrets have found their voice. This latest development marks one of the most unhinged narrative shifts General Hospital has delivered in recent memory, a wild correction to the sanitized version of Drew's past that he's fed to Port Charles. With Britt alive and returning, the ghosts Drew has spent years silencing are now screaming through every corridor of his reality. She doesn't just carry stories of survival, she carries the truth. And that truth is a weapon sharper than any scandal, aimed directly at the fragile foundation of the life Drew built with Willow. Britt's knowledge of Drew's time overseas, his dealings with black market operatives, the rumors of betrayal, and his manipulations of WSB channels, could collapse everything. Her presence confirms that Drew's past is far darker than he's let on, and suddenly, his charm and polished image fall away to reveal a man cloaked in lies. This isn't just about romantic fallout. This is reputational destruction, legal implication, and public disgrace, all wrapped into the return of a woman who was supposed to be gone forever. The psychological impact is seismic. Drew's desperation to hold on to Willow becomes a symptom of his guilt. His obsession with controlling the narrative, with pushing a wedding to prove stability and success, begins to look more like an act of self-preservation. But Britt's return renders that effort futile. She is not someone Drew can silence. She is not someone easily manipulated or erased. Her mere presence forces everyone, especially Willow, to look deeper into the man she's preparing to marry. And what she sees may terrify her. This storyline is not just a twist. It's an imposition, a sudden, brutal correction to the myth Drew has crafted. Britt doesn't need to expose him with fanfare, her existence alone is enough to unravel everything. This is the ultimate form of psychological warfare, an unexpected witness from the past who knows every betrayal, every lie, every secret Drew tried to conceal beneath a veneer of reinvention. And the timing couldn't be more volatile. With Willow's mental health already fraying, and Michael circling like a hawk, poised to take advantage of any implosion, Britt's return throws gasoline on an already burning situation. The wedding, meant to be a public display of unity and strength, could now become the epicenter of humiliation, collapse, and justice. For Drew, Britt is not a ghost. She is a storm. And Port Charles is about to be torn apart by the truths she brings with her. The adjustments have begun. The nightmare has a face. And it's smiling. The reckoning of Drew did not come suddenly, but when it came with the force of years of deception imploding under the weight of inconvenient truths and surgical betrayals. His fall was not a stumble, it was a controlled collapse, orchestrated by two men he never expected to turn against him so ruthlessly, Jason and Michael. What began as unspoken suspicions gradually transformed into a quiet war of strategy, one rooted in memory, loyalty, pain, and a sense of justice long denied. The outcome was inevitable. Drew's downfall wasn't merely written, it was foretold in the very way he underestimated the people around him, believing himself to be untouchable in a town that thrives on the fall of the arrogant. Michael had once trusted Drew. He believed Drew would protect Willow, support Wiley, and uphold the legacy of the Quartermaines with dignity. But the cracks began to show. Slowly at first, subtle manipulations, strange financial choices, whispers of international interference, the obsessive control over Willow's every move after her breakdown. Then came the lies. The romantic coercion masked as protection. The marriage proposal not out of love, but leverage. Michael, already bruised from custody battles and watching the woman he loved spiral under Drew's shadow, reached a breaking point. And it was in that emotional abyss that he reached for the only man who could navigate the darkness with clarity, Jason. Jason's return to Port Charles wasn't marked by fanfare or vengeance. It was a quiet re-emergence into a storm that had already begun to rage without him. But where others saw chaos, Jason saw patterns. He saw the contradiction between the man Drew claimed to be and the man who had survived the WSB. He knew how black operations twisted men from the inside out. And he recognized the look in Drew's eyes, one he had seen before in enemy combatants who had come home with just enough humanity left to fake normalcy. Drew wasn't broken. He was rewired. And Port Charles was only just beginning to understand what that meant. Together, Michael and Jason formed an alliance grounded in calculation. They didn't rush. They waited, studied, and gathered. Michael uncovered documents, timelines, medical records from Europe. Jason made contact with names no one in town dared to speak aloud. There were files from Germany. There were names of doctors who had vanished. There were photos of Drew in places he claimed never to be, and financial trails that led to the same organizations the WSB had been monitoring for years. But the crown jewel came in the form of Britt. Her return was the final proof, living, breathing, undeniable. Britt hadn't died. She hadn't disappeared. She had been hidden, suppressed. Perhaps even betrayed by someone she once trusted. And now she returned not only with scars, but with knowledge. She knew what Drew had done. She knew what he had allowed. She knew who he had become. And she made the conscious choice to speak. The timing was lethal. Drew's wedding to Willow had been positioned as the moment of his complete resurrection, a public celebration of love, redemption, and familial unity. But instead, it became the stage for his obliteration. Just as Willow prepared to say, "I do," the walls around her began to shake. Michael confronted her with truths that couldn't be ignored. Jason stood behind him, steady, silent, irrefutable. And Britt, dressed not for vengeance but for survival, stood as the living ghost of Drew's lies. Willow's breakdown was immediate. The emotional devastation was visible in every shaking breath, every retreating step, every whispered denial she wanted to believe. She had built her new life on Drew's promises. She had clung to him after losing Wiley and Amelia. She had given him her trust, her vulnerability. And now she realized he had used all of it to build a throne of manipulation. She didn't just walk away from the altar. She fled. Not to be dramatic, but to survive. And Drew? He stood alone. The crowd turned. The whispers grew. Tracy's disgust was visible. Carly's restraint broke. Nina, once confused, now saw the truth in horrifying clarity. There was no defense strong enough. No words clever enough to undo what had been unleashed. Drew's fall wasn't loud, it was slow, humiliating, and absolute. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. But the rage behind his eyes was volcanic. Still, it meant nothing. In a town where legacy and loyalty dictate survival, Drew was now a man without a country. Jason and Michael didn't gloat. Their victory was never about pride. It was about justice, about cleaning the rot that had infected their lives. They had reclaimed something more than just control, they had restored the balance. And in doing so, they had sent a message to everyone in Port Charles: deception, no matter how well-dressed, always has an expiration date. What follows now is the ash and ruin of Drew's ambitions. Chancellor investors are pulling out. Legal proceedings are pending. There's talk of WSB involvement. Tracy is moving to secure Quartermain assets from further exploitation. Carly is rallying behind Michael's leadership in the aftermath. And Willow, though fragile, has begun to reclaim her voice, not as Drew's wife, but as her own protector. Her recovery won't be easy. But it will be real. And it will be hers. Britt's presence in town remains a question mark. She has her own demons, her own traumas. But she has proven that truth has weight. And that even those who vanish can return to change everything. As for Jason and Michael, their alliance has only grown stronger. They are no longer just allies by circumstance, they are strategists. Guardians, and symbols of a legacy that refuses to die. Drew's story may not be over, but the chapter where he played the hero is. What remains is a broken man. Surrounded by the wreckage of his own deception, watching as the two men he once sought to manipulate now reshape the world he thought he controlled. And in that silence, With no more lies to protect him, Drew faces the worst fate of all, not death, not exile, but irrelevance. Jason and Michael are the last ones standing, not because they were cruel, but because they were right. And in a world like Port Charles, truth isn't just a weapon, it's the endgame.